Have you ever stopped to think about how many decisions you didn't make out of fear? How many times did you hold back, not because it was the right thing to do, but because you doubted yourself? That's how it is. Most people live like this, in silence, with a lump in their throat and their soul tucked away in a drawer. Pretending to be confident on the outside, while inside, a small fear whispers, "What if you fail again?" The truth is, no one teaches us how to deal with this invisible fear. We grow up believing that courage is feeling nothing, that self-confidence is a gift, that weakness is something to hide. But what if all of that is wrong? What if the secret to overcoming fear isn't strength, but wisdom? Not the arrogant wisdom of those who judge, but the quiet wisdom of those who observe their own soul. The same wisdom Marcus Aurelius wrote about in his diary while facing wars and crises, and which still echoes today, like a lighthouse in the midst of chaos. In this video, you'll discover how to apply the principles of Stoic philosophy to your daily life to overcome fear, master your emotions, and build true confidence, the kind that doesn't shout but endures. We'll talk about mental strength, inner clarity, conscious choices, and what it really means to live with courage. If you're tired of feeling stuck, anxious, or small, then stay until the end, because this conversation will flip a switch inside you. Comment below with a phrase that touched you during the video. Your participation strengthens this community that seeks to grow inwardly before growing outwardly. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and stick around. Here, we grow together, inside and out. Fear is a painting made with mental brushstrokes, and almost always, this painting is a grotesque exaggeration of reality. Marcus Aurelius, with the serenity of an emperor and the soul of a monk, said that, "What frightens us is not the things themselves, but the opinions we form about them. When you hear a noise in the dark, what scares you isn't the sound, but what your mind invents about it. It's as if your brain, trying to protect you, creates monsters to keep you still. But often, those monsters don't exist outside your imagination." Stoic wisdom teaches us to distinguish what is fact from what is emotional fiction. And that changes everything. Because when you realize that fear is just an idea, not a sentence, you gain the power to question it. And that's where the path to overcoming fear with awareness, not brute force, begins. How many times have you faced an important decision and felt your body freeze? It wasn't the real danger holding you back, but the fear of, what if? What if I fail? What if they laugh at me? What if I'm not good enough? But look, all those what ifs are projections, like storm clouds darkening the sky of your mind, even when the day outside is clear. The anxious mind crafts arguments so convincing they seem like truths, but they're just assumptions dressed up as logic. Stoic philosophy invites you to strip away that disguise and ask, is what I'm feeling real, or is it just a thought? That question, asked with honesty, already makes room for the sunlight of clarity to come through. And that's where emotional mastery begins, when you stop reacting automatically and start observing with lucidity. Of course, feeling fear is human. The Stoic doesn't pretend not to feel it, they just don't let it rule them. They look at fear like one looks at a frightened child, with compassion, but also with firmness. They understand that fear without action becomes paralysis, but fear with awareness becomes a compass. That's the shift that allows you to build self-confidence, not the false bravado that shouts to prove itself, but the quiet inner security that grows steadily, calmly. A Stoic mind learns to sit with its own fear like it's talking to an old acquaintance. I know you're there, but I'm not going to let you decide for me. And so, step by step, you begin to master emotions that once mastered you. And more than that, you start to unlock the inner potential that's always been there, waiting for freedom. And maybe, just maybe, that's the first step toward true confidence. There's a common illusion. that confident people were born that way, as if self-confidence is some magical gift handed out by luck. But the Stoics knew the raw truth. Confidence isn't a gift, it's a construction. It's like a muscle that strengthens with constant use, even if your legs tremble at first. Epictetus, who was born a slave and became one of antiquity's greatest philosophers, said that no one is truly free unless they master themselves. That's worth more than any diploma, status, or appearance. Because inner freedom, the kind that gives you security even when everything around you crumbles, comes from one thing only: emotional discipline. And discipline has nothing to do with rigidity. On the contrary, it's a kind of firm kindness you practice with yourself. It's waking up every day and choosing, even slowly, not to give in to the inner voices that say, "It won't work. Better not try. What if it goes wrong?" Every time you choose to act despite fear, you're training your mind to trust you. It's like crossing a shaky bridge at first, but it becomes sturdier with every step. If you want to know how to be more confident, the secret isn't in the words you repeat in the mirror, but in how you handle your simplest decisions. Getting up even when tired, studying even when uninspired, staying calm even when provoked. It's in these small acts that the Stoic mind is forged. It's beautiful when someone reaches a high place in life and seems unshakable. But what no one sees is how many times that person had to say no to their own impulses along the way. They had to silence anger when it was easier to shout, restrain fear when it was easier to flee, choose integrity when it was more tempting to cheat. That's emotional discipline. That's Stoic wisdom in action. And that's how unshakable confidence is built, not by magic, but by consistency. One step a day, one challenge at a time, until, without realizing it, you're no longer so shaken. You breathe, observe, and choose with presence. And maybe when you least expect it, you'll find you're stronger than you thought. But there's something even deeper to discover. There's a phrase that sounds like a whisper from the ages. Memento mori. Remember, you will die. To those running from their own anxieties, this might seem grim. But the Stoics saw in this reminder a source of strength, clarity, and peace. It wasn't about living in fear of death, but living with awareness of life. Because paradoxically, when we accept that everything ends one day, that's when we truly begin to live. Fear starts to wither when the truth of finitude blooms. That project you keep postponing, that conversation you avoid, that dream you've buried, all of it loses its weight when you remember that time is a scarce resource, and your courage is the only guarantee that something will actually change. It's common to fear taking action because we want to control the outcome. But living stoically is accepting that control is an illusion, and still moving forward with purpose. When you understand you're not here to last forever, you start acting with more truth. Overcoming fear stops being an effort and becomes a natural consequence of realizing that time doesn't wait. That fear of exposure, failure, or not pleasing others. It all loses importance in the face of the simple fact that life is a breath. And in that breath, what truly matters isn't how many times you got it right, but how much courage you showed in trying. That's the essence of Stoic philosophy, living with intention, not with guarantees. Many people spend their lives trying to avoid death, hiding from failure, steering clear of pain, waiting for the perfect moment. But in doing so, they lose what matters most, the intensity of the now. Unshakable confidence is born when you realize you don't have time to waste trying to be perfect for others. It's born when you align with your truth and act with integrity, knowing that each moment could be your last. And for that very reason, it deserves to be lived fully present. The Stoic mind doesn't crave longevity at any cost. It craves meaning. And that completely changes how you deal with anxiety, fear of failure, and insecurity. But if this thought feels too intense, take a deep breath. Because there's still another key hidden in the labyrinth of the human mind. The human mind has an insatiable desire for control. We want to control what others think, what happens tomorrow, how we're seen, whether everything will go as planned. But Stoicism shines an uncomfortable and liberating light on this obsession. You have no control over what's outside you. None. Zero. Epictetus stated with almost brutal clarity, "Some things are within our control, and others are not." Anxiety, fear of failure, insecurity. All of these spring from trying to control what was never yours. And when you truly understand this, a weight begins to lift from your shoulders. It's not giving up. It's lucidity. It's the beginning of a confidence that doesn't depend on the external world. You might want recognition, success, love, stability. But what's truly in your hands is how much you dedicate yourself, how much you act with integrity, how present you are in each choice. The rest, how it's received, how long it takes, who supports you, isn't within your domain. And here's the secret. The more you focus on what is yours, the stronger you become. That's the essence of emotional discipline. What you eat, what you say, how you react, what you decide to do today, all of that is under your command. And when you start to value this quiet sovereignty, you begin to build something no one can take away. Inner security. It's easy to fall into the trap of, "I'll only be happy when I achieve such and such." But that mindset is a gilded prison, because as long as you tie your worth to outcomes, you live as a hostage to circumstances. Stoic wisdom teaches that true freedom lies in doing what's right, even if the reward never comes. This shields you from frustration, protects you from emotional ups and downs, and connects you to a power that doesn't need applause, the power to act with awareness. You start to walk with a different posture, more upright, lighter. And then, fear loses its grip, because you understand that no matter what happens, you're at peace with your choices. But there's still a sneaky enemy that needs to be silenced, and it lives in the noise of the outside world. The world is too loud. Every notification buzzes like a siren, pulling you away from silence. Every social media platform feels like a showcase where everyone displays themselves for validation. And in this constant noise, it's easy to lose yourself. It's easy to believe you need to be faster, prettier, more productive, more anything. But Stoic philosophy, with its ancient wisdom, offers a refuge: silence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes what it contemplates. If you only contemplate noise, comparison, and urgency, how can you expect to find peace? The Stoic mind isn't built in haste. It flourishes in listening. And that listening must start from within. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and stick around. Here, we grow together, inside and out. When you start to silence the world, something magical happens. You hear, for the first time in a long time, your own voice. Not the voice shaped by fear of judgment, but the voice of your truest self. The one that whispers what's good for you, what makes you grow, what makes you whole. And that's when confidence emerges, not as a shout of affirmation, but as a state of serenity. Because you're no longer trying to prove anything to anyone. You're just being. This is an essential step for anyone who wants to build solid confidence, the kind that doesn't waver with comments or crumble with rejections. Inner security is born the moment you decide to live in alignment with your values, even if the world doesn't applaud. Of course, silencing the world isn't easy. It's a daily choice. It takes intention. Maybe you need to walk without your phone, meditate for 5 minutes a day, or simply stop to listen to your own breath. These are small practices that reconnect you with presence. And in presence, there's no room for fear of what others will think. There's only clarity. Clarity that strengthens the mind, sharpens discernment, makes you less reactive and more centered. That's the secret to emotional self-control. You no longer react on impulse because you know who you are and what truly matters. But even in silence, fear can return. And when it does, the answer isn't to avoid it. It's to face it with action. Fear loves to make its home where action doesn't dwell. It grows in the empty space between desire and effort. Every day you postpone a choice out of insecurity, fear gets more comfortable, like a weed spreading through the garden of your mind. The Stoics knew this, which is why they didn't preach a philosophy of passive contemplation. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." This means you don't overcome fear by thinking about it. You overcome it by walking toward it. With every step taken, FB, even trembling, you teach your mind that it's possible to move forward without guarantees. That's mental strength. That's applied courage. It's common to wait for the perfect moment to act. I'll do it when I'm more confident. I'll try when I'm ready. But the perfect moment is a mirage. It never arrives because it's born from the illusion of control. Stoicism turns this logic upside down. It teaches you that unshakable confidence doesn't precede action. It's forged during the journey. It's like a muscle that strengthens when forced to move. Want to know how to overcome fear? The answer is uncomfortable and liberating. Move, even with doubt, even with trembling hands. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to keep going despite it. And that's what starts to unlock your inner potential, still dormant. Life doesn't wait. And if you hesitate too long, it passes you by. Sometimes, all that separates you from your next level is a simple gesture. Sending that email, scheduling that conversation, stepping onto that stage, saying that yes. Fear screams, but you respond with movement. Small, perhaps, but real. And that movement becomes tangible proof that you're no longer paralyzed. This builds a kind of true confidence, not the kind that depends on applause or quick results, but the kind that's born from the honor of knowing you're acting with courage. And when you start walking, you realize the road wasn't as scary as it seemed from afar. But there's still a kind of confidence that goes beyond action, one that no one can take from you, because it's born from something deeper. There's a confidence that can be shaken by criticism, another that wavers in the face of a stumble, but there's a quiet confidence, solid as ancient stone, that stands firm even when everything around it collapses. That's the confidence born of virtue. The Stoics taught that the only true good is living in accordance with reason, integrity, and the essence of the significado. Marcus Aurelius, even as Emperor of Rome, sought this above any glory, to be just, to be upright, to be consistent. When you act with virtue, with courage, justice, wisdom, and moderation, it doesn't matter if the audience applauds. You've already won within, and that victory is impossible to steal. It's not about being perfect. It's about being true. Life will test you, with rejections, losses, criticisms, injustices. But when your moral compass is well calibrated, you remain at peace even in chaos. That peace is the foundation of solid confidence, the kind that doesn't bend to comparisons or dissolve because of mistakes. Because the failure of someone who lives with integrity is never a defeat. It's just learning. It's the soil where maturity is planted. Stoic philosophy teaches this with brutal elegance. What's outside you doesn't define who you are. What you do with what's outside does. It's in that choice that the strength of a resilient mindset is revealed. When you act with virtue, you don't need to shout that you're right. The silence of your consistency is deafening. You sleep soundly because you know you were true to yourself, even if no one noticed. This creates a kind of peace that the modern world still can't explain, but feels when it encounters it. It's the inner security of someone who doesn't sell out for applause, who doesn't betray their principles for a shortcut, who chooses to be true over seeming strong. That confidence doesn't need to be fed by likes. It's nourished by a clear conscience. And when you reach that state of soul, fear no longer has room, because you don't need to prove anything anymore. But there's still something to discover. How to turn this wisdom into daily action. How to make it a practice, a life, a continuous choice. If you've made it this far, It's because something inside you has already started to shift. Maybe it's subtle, a deeper breath, a calmer thought, a reminder that fear doesn't have as much power anymore. But it's exactly in that small space of silence that transformation begins. You don't need to take a leap. You just need to take the next step. A step with awareness, with integrity, with stoic courage. Remember what we said at the beginning? Fear is an opinion, and every opinion can be questioned. Now you have tools that go far beyond superficial motivation. You've learned to overcome fear with clarity, to build confidence through virtue, and to recognize that true strength isn't about seeming invincible. It's about keeping going, even when vulnerable. So now I ask you, what are you going to do with this wisdom? What choice needs to be made today to honor your inner strength? Write in the comments. Which part of this video made you reflect the most? This helps others find this content and creates a chain of transformation. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and stick around. Here, we grow together, inside and out.